Today I'm going to show you how to change the LCD screen on an Acer laptop. So the first thing you want to do, you want to pull out that battery. You don't need anything powering up anytime soon. Next thing we're going to get to do is take it apart. So in order to do this, you're going to need some really simple tools. I like to use a flathead screwdriver, typically something quite small like this. A knife. Knives tend to work pretty well in these situations. And pliers, just in case. So now what you want to do is, on the top part of the bezel, this part will actually snap off directly. So my recommendation is you close the lid, look on the side, you'll see there's a seam somewhere around there. If you want to use your knife, feel around till you kind of feel it give a bit. And then if you just keep popping it, you'll hear the little snaps. Open up the lid. Keep snapping all across until the bezel pops off and exposes the actual LCD screen underneath. So now you can see you're exposing most of the screen on this side. There's going to be two screws here and here that you actually have to pop off the covers, and then you can unscrew them and pull off the bezel. And you can see it if I reach over by gently picking away with your knife. You'll see underneath a screw. Take off that screw, and this screw on the other side. Use your screwdriver, or use Phillips head. Tends to help. Unscrew both. Make sure you keep those screws safe and handy so it doesn't have a problem in the future. The bezel just pops right off. So now you've exposed your LCD screen. You'll notice there's screws all throughout the screen. There's one here, two here. There's typically 4, 3, and 4. So you want to unscrew these. Before you do that, you want to make sure that you can place a cloth underneath. Now what the cloth is going to do is just ensure that as you're working with your LCD screen that you're not going to have any problems putting the screen down. So let's remove the screws. Now at this stage you'll see that the back of it will actually fall down a lot easier than the front will. The front will be on hinges, as you can see there. So if you look in the back, you'll get to see a couple of key components. The ground cable, circuit board in the back, and then more importantly the plug down here where you have to plug it in. Let me zoom that in for you. So it's important to be very, very careful. You don't want to pull too hard on any of these cables, because then you're going to start to have pretty significant problems. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually keep this closed and remove the rest of the bezel on the side. So if you look on the side of this, you'll see actually screws that you still need to remove to disattach it from the metal bezel that's holding it in place. So I'm going to go ahead and remove these screws. Now one thing to make sure as you're removing them, you keep the screws very separate. These screws are actually, just to show you the differences, so these screws are tiny comparison. You can see you don't want to mix these two up because you'll have a bit of a problem putting your LCD back together. So now that that's done, these will just bend right back on both sides, and you'll have basically a loose LCD screen here. So now what you want to do is pull off the two connectors that are here. So this connector here, and then there's one at the bottom. So this one should just gently pop out. Don't put too much pressure. It should very easily come out with a white connector. And then the second one, just this connector right down here. Now this one you want to be a bit more careful with, because what you don't want to do is start yanking and pulling and having little pieces come off of it. Now what you see here is actually the connector I need to remove. Something I wanted to point out as I was poking around. There's actually a little bit of a plastic cover. So if I look at the replacement screen that I bought, you'll see that there is no cover on this one. So I want to try to preserve that as much as possible, just to make sure that we're keeping it as nice as I can. So what I'll do, again with the knife, I'm going to kind of really gently Okay, just to give you a quick update, basically what I had to do in order to get this off was I actually had to cut that sticky piece that I wanted so badly to preserve, because I was actually pulling off the protective casing here. So for your interest, I didn't show it. I will make sure that you can clearly see the other one being plugged in. But basically, you gently have to push out the connector and it pops out. So then what it leaves us with is a disconnected LCD. So now we're going to be moving on to putting in the new LCD. So now I have the new LED in place. As you can see, it's there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the difference. I'm going to connect this connector. So by leaving this little plastic piece in, tuck around, see, just slides in. And be nice and gentle. You hear it click. Put down the new piece of tape over top, but I can actually hold that in place with a little piece of tape, but that's basically it. That's all you need the connector to do, is connected, done. So I'm not going to walk you through the process of putting it back together, because it's basically, if you want to do that, you watch the video in reverse, but I'll show you the final product. So as you can see, we put back the laptop together, all the little holes are filled in, everything's all snapped into place. Now comes the moment of truth. Put some power to it. Let's see how good my craftsmanship is. Perfect. So that's it. I've changed an LED screen for an Acer Aspire 5742Z variant 4824. What I'm going to do now is I'll let it boot up into the operating system, make sure the resolution's right, and then I'll return it back to my customer. That's Trevor from GottaGetThat.ca signing off.